Turning points change the course of our lives, whether it's a big decision, overcoming an obstacle or tragedy, or taking a leap of faith. These stories of inspiration and resilience are what Turning Point is all about. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Turning Point. I'm your host, Priya Sam, and today's episode is brought to you by Fanshawe College. If you've joined us for a lot of this season, you'll know that Fanshawe is one of our sponsors. I actually graduated from the broadcast journalism program there in 2006. It marked a major turning point in my life, so this partnership really couldn't be more perfect. Now, the interview you're about to hear is with Dionne Sinclair. She is the VP of Clinical Operations at Canada's largest mental health teaching hospital, CAMH, based in Toronto, and she is also a Fanshawe alum. She graduated from the nursing program in 1988. This interview was recorded during a live event on April 27th, 2022. Now, speaking of incredible alumni, tonight I'm thrilled to be joined by Dionne Sinclair. Dionne graduated from the nursing program at Fanshawe in 1988, and she is now the Vice President of Clinical Operations at CAMH. That is Canada's largest mental health teaching hospital. It is based in Toronto. Her work has been recognized both in Canada and internationally. We're going to hear much more about that this evening. And also, I have to mention that Dionne is the mother of 3 beautiful girls. She's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and an award-winning fitness professional. So basically, she just does it all, you know? Thanks so much for being here, Dionne.
Thank you very much, Priya.
Oh, it's so great to have you. You really do it all. I'm so looking forward to hearing more of your story this evening.
Thank you again.
So let's start by going back to your childhood, because you were born in Jamaica. You came to Canada when you were 9 years old. What do you remember about that experience?
Actually, I remember coming, it was December 6th. Remember that date because it was the coldest I've ever been in my life. We landed in Toronto. That was something else because when you're flying into Toronto at night, all the lights, it just looked like there was gold all over. We call it foreign. Any Jamaicans on here know when you go to foreign. And it was like, wow, that was exciting. But then you get outside and boy, you're hit by cold, and it was the coldest blizzard they've ever had. Oh. We drove to London, and in the morning when I woke up, I look out, the trees didn't have leaves. There were no insects. And it's like, I know this isn't hell because it's supposed to be hot, but what kind of place is this with no leaves on trees? So as a child, it was like, I couldn't reconcile it with, I'm used to a tropical island, lots of fruits, lots of trees with leaves, and here, desolate, cold. That was it. That's what I remember.
Oh my gosh. That is like, you literally went from opposite ends of the spectrum, from this warm, beautiful place. And to come here in the winter, my mom actually had a similar experience when she first came to Canada. She came in February, and she tells a similar story about just being so shocked and not having any frame of reference for that kind of cold.
Yes, absolutely. It's like climbing into a freezer and say you're going to live there. Literally.
Oh my gosh. So after that kind of initial shock wore off, how was the adjustment for you to being in a new country?
For me, I won't say it was bad. I finally adjusted, but for the first while, I ran away. Like, I literally was looking for a way to get back to Jamaica. I was purposefully, every time we were supposed to go off to school, my brothers and sister would be going to school, and I'm trying to find my way back home, because if I found here, I could find my way back home. I remember the police bringing me home a couple times, and then I had to promise my mom I wouldn't run away again. It was great having my siblings with me. My big brother, Steve Sinclair, he was in all my grades with me, so I did have a protector there. And it was an adjustment because we had very strong Jamaican accents. Even though English is the language in Jamaica, teachers would think, should we put them in an ESL class? And it's like, no. We just have accents to go with our speech. And I finally adjusted. London, the nice thing about London, lots of immigrants were in London. So we weren't the only ones. There's from all over the world. And if you look at a class picture, you'll see different people in the pictures.
Yeah, that must have made a difference too, because I know from myself from growing up I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan, and it was a predominantly white population there. It was really nice to have, some people from different cultures and different backgrounds, and also people who had recently immigrated. And like you said, maybe had accents or brought different food to school for lunch. I think just having those commonalities is really helpful when you kind of feel like you stand out somewhere.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, tell me about when you became interested in nursing and in healthcare.
All right. So it's a funny story. I was not interested in nursing. I watched WKRP in Cincinnati. And if anybody knows Lonnie Anderson, it's like she ran that radio station. She would always be dressed up and she'd come in and she'd be typing away. And it's like, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to be at the desk. And then I took grade 10 typing and I was like this. I could not look at my fingers. And so it's like, typing wasn't for me. So that receptionist thing wasn't for me. And so mom said, nursing, you will never be without a job. They always need nurses. And at HB Beale, they had the RNA program at the time. And so in 1994, I went into the program, loved it. I excelled in the program. I did really well. And I graduated in 1986 as an RNA. At the time, registered nursing assistant. Now they're called RPNs, registered practical nurses. But that's how my nursing journey, I couldn't type. That's if I was great at typing, I'd be like, well dressed, but it would be a whole different story.
Well, you're still well dressed now. You just
Yeah.
work in healthcare instead of at a front desk somewhere.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I love that story because it's funny how sometimes we have this idea of what we want to do, and then, we get taken in this completely different direction. And obviously it has worked out very well for you. We should tell everyone that you just received the Fanshawe Distinguished Alumni Award in Health Sciences. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I was so surprised. It's like, really? I was nominated? Who nominated me? But I guess there's a whole process behind the scenes. And I got this amazing email. Of course, I had to call my mother, told my mom, told the kids, and it was like, wow. So I was very honored, and it's a privilege to have been nominated and to receive it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, it's so well deserved. And on that note, tell me about your time at Fanshawe.
Okay, so I have to thank Fanshawe for giving me the opportunity to come into the RN program, the diploma program. I completed my RNA at Beale, and I had I wasn't thinking of going on to college. I was an RNA. I could go work at Victoria Hospital, start making money, no more school, no more teachers, no more books. And it's like, I had a teacher, Mrs. Lowley, and she said, no, you're too smart, you're too bright, you have to continue on. And then, of course, I had my mom who said, yes, you need to continue on. So Mrs. Lowley wrote a letter to Fanshawe College asking if they would admit me as a mature student who's coming in already as an RNA. Fanshawe had this program where if you've been working as a practical nurse and you wanted to come in doing the diploma, you'd get entry because you're already registered with the College of Nurses. And so I was allowed in. I had to do the 2 years. It was a really amazing, the program. And funny story, I went to the Woodstock campus to do my practicum because hospitals all over had to help out. And that's where I met my future husband in Woodstock. Yes. So I ended up living in Woodstock once we got married. If you think London didn't have that many Black people, go to Woodstock in 86. Anyway, another story. But I ended up living in Woodstock, staying in Woodstock, and it was just so funny. But it was great going there because Woodstock gave us an opportunity to do a lot more. In London, we would be competing with Western nursing students for practical experience. So it was great going to Woodstock. It was just us Fanshawe students.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That must have been, though, of course, a big change because London, I mean, compared to Woodstock, is a much bigger city. So
Mhm.
yeah, that would have been a big change. I know, now we hear so much about nurses being in high demand, and there being so many open positions, but what was it like at that time, finding a job?
Actually, back in 88, when I graduated from Fanshawe, you could find a job. Actually, lots of places had jobs. So I took my first job, it was at London Psychiatric Hospital. And they were hiring full time. Other places had part time and casual. And it's like, hey, full time with benefits, I'll take that. So London Psych, I was on Town One. It was amazing. It was great. But after like 6 to 8 months, I'm going, whoa, I'm going to lose all my skills. If I stay here, I'm not doing any IVs, I don't have any catheters, there's no dressings, all those practical nursing skills I'm going to lose. And so I left London, and Cambridge Memorial was hiring full time with benefits and a pension. I was always looking for full time. And so I joined the medicine program at Cambridge, and I worked med surg for about 9 years. Happy as can be, really meshed into the community. And I actually drove from Woodstock to Cambridge. It's not that far, but it's far now when I think about it. But at the time, you did 12-hour shifts. I'd drive back and forth. And so I was able to find a job.
Yeah, wow. But you're right. I mean, that's quite a commute. How far was that? Woodstock
It's
to
around
Cambridge.
30, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. In my head, it was
Mhm.
further, but it's still, I guess, that's still quite a drive, but it sounds like it was worth it for obviously the good job, the great experience.
Yeah.
Your biggest turning point happens when you get laid off after some big changes in government. So tell me how this changed your life.
Okay. So working in Cambridge, med surg nurse, becoming a team leader on the unit. I thought, that's it. I'm going to keep this job till I retire, get my pension, go back to Jamaica, and just live happy. The government changed. They started amalgamating the hospital. It was called re-engineering, restructuring. That was the big words. And so they're putting hospitals together, whether they liked it or not. That's where University Hospital in Victoria, St. Joe's, they got together to become London Health Science Center. They took all the nurses, and it was by seniority. We're a unionized environment. Anyone that was there 10 years and under, that was a cutoff, 10 years. So all the new grads, all the new people, the people that were there 9 years, 4 months, you still were 10 years and under. So we all got pink slips, and we were laid off, 68 of us. I remember that. And 65 nurses, they left for the States because the States thought, wow, Florida, it was Florida, New York, where were the places? And California. Nurses were going. And at the time, I had 2 young kids. I had a daughter with some medical issues. And when you have pre-existing conditions, it's very hard to have a child in the States and try to get insurance. So going to the States wasn't an option. And the government did offer all diploma nurses the opportunity to go back and get their Bachelor of Science in Nursing. It was becoming the entry to practice for all registered nurses. So I applied to Western, and I moved back home with my mom, with the 2 kids. And yep, I went to Western, and successfully, with a lot of hard work, I completed the Bachelor of Science in Nursing program at Western. I won't say it was easy. It was tough. It was hard. Being laid off was tough because, like, whoa, wait a minute, what? And it's like, nope, we have to cut costs, and we're putting everything together. And at the time, I thought the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And now looking back, it was like the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I hadn't planned on going back to school. I'd planned just to work till I retire as a frontline nurse. And now that turning point really changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah, it's so interesting how those moments that at the time obviously are horror. I mean, and it was hard and terrible at the time, but it's interesting now to be able to look back and see that it, in the long run, it led to a lot of positive outcomes.
Tell me more about that time, because you're balancing a lot here. You are going back, you moved in with your mom, you have two young kids, and you're going back to university. I mean, just saying that, I think balancing one of those things is hard. So how did you manage to do all of that?
I usually tell friends, because they say, how can you do all you do? I have everything scheduled. I have everything on a schedule. I'll plan my tomorrow tonight, because I will miss something if I think, oh no, I'll remember, I'll go to sleep. No, I won't remember. And I know that for a fact. It's like, write things down. But for me, I always had things on a schedule, and I had to know what's coming next so I don't miss it, or I can plan for it. So with my mom, of course, phenomenal mother, Blossom Sinclair. Love you to death, Mom. However, strict. Even when you're under her roof, it's like, I was in university, and university life, somebody knows that I didn't, because you came home and you put your nose in the books. And for me, I was at a disadvantage going to university, because you need grade 13 to go to university. At those times, they had the applied and what was academic streams. I was in that stream where it was college was the trajectory, but I stopped at grade 10 to do my RNA program. I did do the diploma RN, but I didn't have grade 13 microbiology, physiology, all the things they talked about at university. I literally had to go back to Beale, grab textbooks, learn stuff from the textbook in order to do my homework for third year, because that's where they put you. You're already a registered nurse. So the post-RN program, they called it, they put you into third year physiology, third year microbiology, all those chemistry courses in university. And it was like, for me, failure wasn't an option though. I had two daughters, I had to be a role model, and I knew I had to succeed. And it's amazing what you can do when you don't have an option. It's succeed or there was no other option. I had to pass, which I did.
Wow. So you just added another layer onto all of that, because along with doing your university classes, you were going back to these high school textbooks and learning all of those foundational concepts that you really needed for these third year university classes.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's why I didn't do much else than go home. Mom would cook. Mom had the kids looked after, and she loved looking after her grandkids. So and study, and make sure I passed. So graduation was awesome. It was amazing. The whole family came. They gave us like 4 tickets for the convocation, but the whole family came. Everyone was super proud. We had a big contingent.
Oh, well, that is certainly worth celebrating for everyone. I mean, after doing all of that, I can imagine that you must have felt a huge sense of accomplishment, and I'm sure a little bit of relief too at the end of those years.
Yes.
So that was 2 years, was it?
2 years.
Okay, that was 2 years.
The third and fourth year of the 4-year undergrad program. Yep, they put us in the third and fourth year.
And then where did you end up after you graduated?
Okay, so this is me and my personality. Now that I'm a Bachelor of Science nurse, I can't go back to the bedside. I need to be in management. I need to be in leadership. Well, it was still really tough to find a job. Like, we're just coming out of all the restructuring of the hospitals. And for a nurse in 96, 97, 98, really tough to find a job. So to help my resume get bigger, I did an operating room course at Fanshawe. I got that on my transcripts, got A's. I also did a graduate diploma in occupational health and environmental medicine at McMaster. And that's carrying a 1-year-old. I was breastfeeding a child in that class and applying. And I finally got a leadership job at the Sarnia jail. They were looking for a healthcare coordinator to help manage the nurses and hand out pills literally to the inmates in the jail, but it was leadership. I was the healthcare coordinator, and it was Monday to Friday days, which worked out well for me. And that's where I ended up. That's my first leadership position.
So did you move to Sarnia?
Yes, packed up and moved to Sarnia. That would be a really long commute. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say you must have moved somewhere because yes, that's not like Woodstock to Cambridge. That would have been a long commute.
I moved to Sarnia.
So this is also, so I know your first job was in psychiatric care, but this is sort of a return to that, those early days in mental health care too, right?
Yes and no, because you had a lot of conversation with inmates. Instead of, no one had the tubes and IVs or catheters, anything like that, but a lot of people had issues that they need to talk out, and they weren't talking to the correctional officers. They would talk to the nurse, or they'd tell you about their problems, and really they just wanted someone to listen. And some are diabetic, so they need their insulin, or others had heart disease, high blood pressure, they needed their blood pressure medication. What happened from Sarnia, SARS came to Ontario, was in Toronto. We didn't know if it was going to spread across the province. And somehow the corrections in the Ontario, the government, they found out about me in Sarnia, and I was asked to go to Ottawa to the detention center. They had just opened up this big new Ottawa Carleton Detention Center to open an infirmary, a little hospital unit inside that jail, so that if anyone comes in after hours, say 3 a.m., there would be a nurse there to take the temperature. That was the biggest thing with SARS, you had to check. And the hospitals really didn't want people coming in to emerge unnecessarily. So if we had a hospital unit where inmates could be assessed inside the jail, then everything would work out. So that's what I did. I packed up the whole family, moved right across the province to Ottawa. And I stayed in Ottawa for close to 18 years, but that's how I ended up in Ottawa.
So this is now your second position in leadership, right?
Yes,
in Ottawa?
Yes. In Ottawa. Healthcare coordinator at that jail.
Got it. Okay. So how, I guess I know you had kind of mentioned that once you graduated from Western, this is when you really started to think about having a career in healthcare leadership, which is so different, of course, from the earlier days of your career when you were, working directly with patients and doing more of the bedside piece of nursing. So how did this compare, and was being in leadership what you expected and were hoping for?
A lot of it was, because in leadership, you do work with a leadership team to make decisions. And I have to say, being a bedside nurse, sometimes different decisions were being made and you kept going, who the heck made that decision? And it's like, if I was the boss, I'd be making a different decision. So I can say back then that was also a driving force. And I never saw people that looked like me in leadership positions. As even the healthcare coordinator, I would go to an all provincial coordinators meeting, and there was one other Black coordinator, Judeline, but it was me. I'd go to a conference, a nursing leadership conference, and I was it. And it's like, well, where's everybody else? I know there's a lot of Black nurses at the bedside. None of them are in leadership. So I wanted to stay in leadership, to be that role model and be that someone any other racialized nurse could emulate that. Yes, it's possible. I could be a leader as well. So from Ottawa Carleton Detention Center, though, I didn't stay that long because it was like, this is the top. I was a healthcare coordinator. There's nowhere else to go. There's no other rung to go up. So from there, I started working part-time at the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Center. And from the Royal, I did 2 stints as manager of quality and accreditation. But when I wasn't successful of getting that job full time, I went and applied in Toronto. I applied all over, but I got a job at Humber River Hospital as the manager of inpatient mental health and addictions, which was amazing. That was a really good experience there.
So that brought you from Ottawa to Toronto then for that job.
Yes.
And that's when you ended up
3
here.
years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, no. One of the things I have to share is, if you want to succeed in any place and you're not moving, then you might have to leave that place and go look elsewhere, because there are opportunities elsewhere. And so for me, I became the manager of inpatient mental health and addictions. I completed a master's in nursing from York University. during that time as well. And with my master's, I had a phenomenal director. Her name is Paula Villafana. I'm shouting her out. She coached and mentored me. And she just said, no, you could be a leader. You could be a director. And I said to Paula, I go, you trying to get rid of me? And she goes, no, you've got what it takes to be a director. And I said, well, it was 3 years, 7 months I stayed at Humber. And she said, no, if you apply and you get an interview, just come let me know. I will help you through that. And it's like, wow, what kind of a boss is this? She even offered to help me. And so I was really successful. I applied and I became the director of complex continuing care back in Ottawa at Briere Continuing Care. I was very flexible enough to be able to move around for the positions I want. From Briere, I went all the way to Thunder Bay to be the director of the home and community care for the Northwest LHIN, largest geography in the province, from Manitouwadge all the way to Kenora, all the way up to Sioux Lookout. But love the North. Anybody who hasn't gone to the North, in the summer, take a drive. You'll love it.
In the summer.
And but it gave me the experience with government. It gave me the LHIN experience I need, and it gave me home and community care experience, which on a resume makes you a lot more attractive. Being a Black nurse leader, you need the credentials and you also need the experience so that when somebody's looking at candidates for positions, they can't overlook my resume because I've got director experience, I've worked complex care, I've worked medicine, I've worked at the LHIN, I've done briefing notes for the government, and I've managed large portfolios, large budgets. And so I was recruited from Thunder Bay to South Lake Regional to be director of medicine. And then I did South Lake for a year and a bit, and George Floyd got murdered. And I took my wigs off and went to the CEO and say, your Black staff, we're not okay. Something has to be done about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to her credit, I have to thank Arden Crystal. She goes, you're right. And we need to do something about it. And we want you to do something about it. And it was like, well, wait, I just was bringing this to your attention. And she goes, no, we need you to go find the best evidence and the best practice that organizations need to be more diverse, more inclusive, more equitable. And it was like, okay, I guess if I say something has to be done, and she said, yep, something has to be done, I'm going to go do it. So that's how come I became Director of Diversity and Cultural Advancement at Soldiers Memorial Hospital and South Lake. They had a partnership. They got to share in the cost. And that was a great experience because it really did open my eyes to intercultural competence, building cultural awareness in leaders. Because once their mindsets change, that's when you see real change in organization. The decision makers have to appreciate people from other cultures, see them with all their innovative ideas and different perspective as valuable to their organization. So I even changed my PhD thesis to go and look at changing diverse makeup of leadership. Will it impact staff engagement? Will it influence patient outcomes? So that's how much that impacted me. So it's around 8 years as a director, from Ottawa to Thunder Bay to South Lake. So I started applying for VP positions. And again, full resume, thinking, I don't see much Black VPs. You don't see them. And I was successful after 5 rounds of interviews to be VP of the CCR. It's called the Complex Care and Recovery Program at CAMH, and also the Chief Nursing Executive. That wasn't mentioned before, but the Chief Nurse and the VP Clinical Operations is my title.
Wow. I mean, you've been not only just all over the province, but you've worked in so many different areas of healthcare, along with this work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things you said in our pre-interview was you said, that you wanted to be the Black leader that you wished you had to look up to. And as you were kind of going through this, and I know you mentioned, having to have that resume that's rock solid and maybe doing more than probably a lot of your white counterparts did just to be considered for those jobs, basically providing that resume that no one could say no to. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that experience, though, of not having those mentors and, other Black leaders to kind of help support you along the way. I mean, how did you get through some of those times when I'm sure you faced racism and discrimination?
Even though I didn't have those Black leaders, I had a group of sisters. In Ottawa, the Cultural Arts Studio run by Suzanne, she really brought us together and we supported each other. We cared for each other. We ate together, danced together. And so I did have a community that I could always turn to and get advice from. And Paula Villafana from Humber still was there as my mentor. And I had an executive coach, Bernie Blay from Ottawa. He was the CEO at Briere, but he really molded me and said, no, you can do this and you can. Like, he had me as a succession plan for the VP position. I wasn't there long enough for that, but it was just amazing. So there were other mentors that helped me in my journey. And I know that as I journeyed along, I'm being a role model for other racialized nurses coming behind, and the role of a leader to grow future leaders. So I started the Canadian Black Nurses Network. And one of our role and goal is to grow those future leaders. We do coaching, mentoring. We help with resume writing. We help with interview prep. If somebody has an interview for manager or director, one of us will sit down and go through and give them instant, just-in-time feedback. How to dress, how to present yourself, everything that no one was around to teach me those little nuances, but just helping sisters out so that they can, and brothers too, any nurse that wanted that help, we're there to help them.
It's incredible that you have been able to kind of take your experiences and to really support this next generation of leaders. I guess as you were starting this work, I know you mentioned the murder of George Floyd was really another turning point in your life and also in your career. What was the reception like to some of these ideas that you were presenting about the importance of diversity and inclusion in healthcare?
Funny enough, everybody was, oh yes, that's needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got an equity statement. A lot of organizations have an equity statement. And I would always go back and quote James Baldwin, who says, I don't believe what you say because I see what you do. And the organizations I speak with, I said, actions is what speak. People are watching. When you see a lot of announcements from hospitals and they've got a picture of the premier or somebody giving them funds or something like that, but everyone in the administration is white, it's like, but isn't that organization one of the ones that have this great equity statement about diversity and inclusion? When you're presenting your front facing to the public, we see what you do. And that's really the reaction I share with people, because others are saying, no, we care about diversity. We care about equity. We care about inclusion. Funny story I'll share with you. There are two smokers. They decide they're going to quit. And they did. They were off it for a good 6-8 months. Somebody came up to one and said, hey, don't you want a cigarette? They came up to both of them. And one said, no, I'm trying to quit. The other one said, no, I'm a non-smoker. There's the difference. I'm an anti-racist. It's not that diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't important, because it's important to everybody, but are you an anti-racist? And what are you going to do about it? And people are watching. Actually, the whole world is watching, because 2 years ago when George Floyd got murdered, everyone put out that great equity statement. Now people are looking at their leadership, and they're looking at the makeup of the decision makers. They're even looking at their budgets. If you say you care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, show me your budget. I'll tell you if you care, because did you put in resources? So.
Yes. I mean, and now it's that accountability, right? Like, you made the statement, show us, like you said, show us your leadership, show us your board of directors, show us where your budget's going. And I think that that's the follow through that people are looking for now, from especially from companies who made these bold statements at that time. Yeah. And now it's time to see the follow through. So yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to have people hold companies, organizations, hospitals, everyone accountable. What advice would you give to other people of color who might be in a position like you were in the early days of your career and just getting started in leadership?
I would tell them, have a plan, write it down. Because I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I have a plan to be the first Black CEO, which I can't be anymore because there is one in London, Ontario now. But you have a plan and you write it down, and then you're going to have to be the best at whatever you do. Get that education and get the credentials. I have a master's in nursing, a master's certificate in health administration. I'm a certified healthcare executive. When you look different than the dominant majority, you actually do need those things on your resume. It just doesn't work trying anything else. And you have to be able to be trusted. You're professional, you're respected, and you have to just put that best foot forward. Be prepared, though, to walk away, because if you go into an organization and respect is not being served there, you're being treated, you don't feel valued, you don't feel appreciated, you don't even feel welcomed, that's not a place for you. If you have the wherewithal and you have the finances to go somewhere else or stay there and apply long enough till you get somewhere else, you have to go into an organization where you do feel valued and appreciated. So I encourage even the nurses I mentor, what does your resume look like? Get varying experiences. One place for a long time doesn't give you the experience you need, and you don't expand your network. Because since I've moved around, I've got an amazing network right across the province, and I could call up I'm going to shout him out. His name is Adam Vinette, my other VP, who is also amazing and instrumental, taught me a lot about actually this VP role I'm in. And I still call him up or text him and say, hey, Adam, and I'm able to reach him. So it's one of those things where you've got this broad network of professionals who are your biggest cheerleaders, and they've got your back, which is amazing. It's pretty awesome, actually.
It does sound like you have a great network and also have had some really wonderful mentors and supporters along the way. Mm-hmm. I mentioned in the introduction, of course, you're VP of Clinical Operations at CAMH, and I think most people know, but it is Canada's largest mental health teaching hospital. So in this particular role, what are you most passionate about?
Actually, as the VP and chief nurse, it's growing future leaders, making sure there is leadership development, because those leaders have to look after the frontline staff, and a competent, capable leader, they will take care of the staff. And I'm not a manager. I'm not looking after the minutia. I want the directors that are under me, they have their own business units. How can I help? What resources do you need? What else do you need to succeed? And make sure they have the opportunities for leadership development. Ensuring that the hospital has a strategic plan. It also has a vision. Mental health is health, and I truly believe that. So whatever we're doing in the program is also aligned with the strategic plan and the strategic direction. And now that I'm here and I have this platform, CAMH is hiring. I'm the chief nurse. You should come. Literally, everywhere I go and I speak, because there are nursing shortages. There's burnout is there as well, because COVID. I'm not even going to talk about it. So I always share that CAMH is hiring, and there I do feel valued. I feel appreciated. I feel welcomed. My voice matters. I have as much of an opportunity to excel there as anyone else. And so it's an environment that is just getting better and better.
And this, what you just said there, it's a perfect segue into this next question, because I think that it was we got a little taste there of what you're like as a motivational speaker. This is something you also do. I mean, on top of everything, this incredible career you have had, moving all over Ontario, casually you dropped in, you got a couple master's degrees in that time, as well as working your way into this leadership position. You're now a VP, of course. But you're also a motivational speaker and a fitness professional. You actually teach fitness classes and you've competed. So how did that become part of your life, the fitness world?
Well, okay. So personal story here. I can't give any relationship advice because I've been divorced twice. And then after the second one, it's like, okay, you need to take care of you and you need to do things for yourself. And way back in high school, I used to run track. So being an athlete comes naturally. And so I started lifting weights to get rid of stress and frustration, way better than eating a tub of ice cream. And I lifted weights and literally you see your body change. You actually, oh, that looks good. Remember, mother of three, I started after 40. And it's like, wow, I did amazing. And then at the time, I wanted the gym membership, but being Jamaican, it's like, how can I get this gym membership for free? Well, if you're a gym instructor, you get a free membership. So I worked for Good Life Fitness for over 12 years. I was a body pump instructor, body jam instructor, Zumba instructor, and did really well. I had over 100 people in my classes. At some gyms, they would give little cards because only 75 people can get into the card and into the studio. People would counterfeit the cards. So like, I'm like, what? It's like, how can 100 people, only 75 cards? No, people literally went and photocopied and counterfeit those cards. I thought that was just so, and I loved it, being on stage and just motivating, encouraging anyone that came to work out from all different levels and experiences. They kept coming back and people really got everything out of it. I feed off that energy as well. So it works out and it gets me up at 5 a.m. because that's the only time I have to work out. But you work out first thing in the morning, your metabolism keeps burning all day. So I am turning 55. October, I'm 55. So all you on here watching, I'm expecting presents. I'm just.
I was going to ask, as you started talking about teaching all of these classes, how did you fit it into your schedule? But that's what you did. You woke up at 5. So you would wake up at 5 and teach a class or two.
I teach 6 to 7.
Okay.
For Good Life, I also taught in the evenings and I would teach on weekend. It's only an hour and I got my workout in as well because most people, you go in after work. So I'd be doing usually a body pump and then a Zumba right after. And shout out to all my Good Life instructors. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Plus raising 3 daughters.
Yes.
And tell me about your daughters. How old are they and what are they up to?
So Althea Green, she is 33 years old. She is a registered nurse. She went to Queen's University and she actually now lives in Kingston with her partner and she works for public health. She was doing contact tracing. I know she's still working, but she lives in Kingston. She had to move out of the GTA. House prices are too expensive here. And Pamela Green, she is a social worker. Pam actually did a communications degree at Carleton with honors, then came to Fanshawe and she did her HR certification. So she's a Fanshawe alum and she went to McMaster. It's something similar to me. She did her Bachelor of Science in social work, even though I said, Pam, you could have gone right to the master's. No, Mom, I want to start and learn everything. And so she completed her master's in social work from UFT, and now she's working at Cornwall Hospital as a social worker, discharge planner. And my youngest, Brianne, who is 21. Is Brianne 21? No, 23. Whoops. See, any mother on here understands what I just did. Okay. 23. She works for TD Bank in Ottawa, and she went to Algonquin College and graduated with her accounting and business degree. Well, degree diploma. There's a combination there.
Wow. I mean, going back to what you said earlier when you were talking about, moving back in with your mom during your turning point and going back to university and thinking about your daughters during that time and setting that example for them. I mean, obviously they're all doing very well. And obviously that setting that example worked.
Yeah, no, I'm super, super proud of them. They need to call their mother more. I'm just saying, but I'm super proud of them. They're amazing. They're independent. And yeah, they surprised me actually, because Pam, she took 2 years off and went traveling around the world. She went to Israel by herself. She goes, oh, I meet these people online and we meet up. She went to China. She walked the Great Wall of China, and she spent 2 years in Cape Town, South Africa, volunteering. And then she went to 25 countries by the time she was 25 years old. And that was her tagline. Went to Namibia, Botswana, Uganda. She worked in an orphanage in Uganda. And it's like, wow. And she's home now. Actually, she just came back from South Africa about 2 months ago. She went to visit some friends, but traveling is our nature, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's amazing to hear that they're doing so well. And this is a good point to kind of reflect back on your turning point. At that time, you were unexpectedly laid off. You moved back in with your mom to go back to school. When you look back on that and you think about where you are now, what do you think is the biggest lesson that came out of that turning point?
Biggest lesson is look for those silver linings, and don't let a crisis go to waste. Take the opportunity. It's not an issue or a problem, even a concern. It's an opportunity. And now it's like, boy, am I ever glad I got laid off. At the time, I didn't feel so bad because 68 of us were, so it wasn't like personal. It wasn't me. It was just the restructuring, but it's the best thing that happened. At the time, nope, I was upset. But now it really did change my career trajectory. I went back and I knew I could do university. Before it's like, no, I can't go to university. I don't have grade 13. You need grade 13 for university. That's what we were all told, everybody. So it's like, no, with hard work, perseverance, some sweat, and some prayers, lots of praying, you can go to university and pass as an adult student. So, and I have to let you know, the nursing program, BSN program anywhere is one of the toughest university programs. They've done some research and found out it's super tough. The papers, the stress. Yep. So.
Yeah, I believe that. And I've seen some of my friends go through those programs too. And absolutely, it's definitely not easy, let alone doing it while you're raising 2 young kids and also trying to study high school classes along the way. So just incredible to hear about that point. And, I like your message of looking for the silver lining, because I think it's really, I think we can all think of a time in our life when we looked or could have looked for that silver lining and when times were tough, but especially during the last 2 years, I think we've all experienced at some point a moment where we've had to look pretty hard for that silver lining. But if you look hard enough, you can find it.
It's true, because look at this. I am sitting here, I'm in East Gwillimbury, Ontario. You're where you're at and we're talking. And that's a silver lining from COVID. Families, we can now just, jump on a Zoom, let's chat. We did Christmas on Zoom. It wasn't the same as Christmas in person, but we had family from England show up on the Zoom, which you would never have them for Christmas. So that's one silver lining. I can sit in my kitchen and just be communicating with people in Jamaica. So it worked out. And I have to say, it's like, I kept saying mom, but I also have a dad. Dad was there, but my mom is the one who literally pushed me. And even when I wanted to give up, she said, nope, you're not giving up. But shout out to Dad, Eric Sinclair. Dad, I'm so sorry. Don't. Anyway, it's one of those.
Shout out to Eric as well. Yeah, it sounds like, they both sound pretty amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you again for sharing your story, Dionne. It was such a pleasure to have Dionne as a guest, and of course to have Fanshawe sponsor our event. We will have more of those live virtual events throughout the year. If you follow me on social media at PriyaSam, I'll be posting about them as they come up. And in the meantime, if you enjoyed the show, we hope you'll leave us a 5-star review and follow the show on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. Thank you again so much for joining us. And until next time, take good care of yourselves and of each other.